On Thursday morning, the Cincinnati Bengals made the decision to release quarterback Andy Dalton, meaning the Joe Burrow era is among us in Cincinnati. But obviously, this begs the question, could Andy Dalton be coming to Foxborough? I'm Sierra Goodwill here with Evan Lazar and our Cincinnati expert, Mike Petraglia. A lot of people have been talking about a veteran quarterback to the Patriots. Cam Newton's name has been thrown out there despite repeated reports that the Patriots are not interested in Newton. But does Andy Dalton make more sense for the Patriots?
I say no because of the schematic adjustment he would have to make. He would have to get used to the Patriots' way of doing things in an off season that certainly will be different than any other. I don't think that the Patriots would be necessarily interested in him, given all of the factors around this current off season. If this were a normal off season and if they had not signed Brian Hoyer, I would say definitely bring Andy Dalton in for a number of reasons. First of all, he's a veteran quarterback who knows the NFL, knows NFL defenses, how to read them and whatnot. He's got the skill set, and he's certainly somebody who could help bring Jarrett Stidham along.
Andy Dalton's the one name, though, going back to before free agency. Now, things change and information changes, but was the one name that I was continuously told is the only possibility really out of this free agent crop or this veteran crop of potential free agents at the quarterback position to land in New England. You know, we've talked a lot about Jameis Winston and Cam Newton and all these names, and I've said no. But Dalton is the one guy that I have been told multiple times is the only sort of guy that's been part of the discussion. I think some of the things that you look at with him, the one number I want to read out here is 2.39 seconds, which is Andy Dalton's time to throw last year, which was tied for the fastest release in the NFL with Drew Brees. Now, the ball doesn't always go where it needs to go. It doesn't always go in the right hands of the right player, the right team with Andy Dalton, but the ball comes out quickly. It comes out on time. He's off the back foot and the ball is out. And there's a good decision-making process with him in terms of going through progressions and understanding how to read defenses at a high level. So I think from those aspects, his game does fit New England quite well. He gets the ball out quickly. He makes good decisions with the football when he's not turning it over, at least where to go with it in the progression. And there is some general accuracy from within 20 yards of the line of scrimmage. Once you start to push the ball down the field with him, the ball gets all over the place. The decision making is obviously poor in some instances with the interceptions, but I think that the main thing is if you can get him into a scheme like the Patriots scheme and curtail those interceptions and tell him to limit it as much as possible and not ask him to do too much like they were asking him to do in Cincinnati over the last couple of years with not a ton to work with around him. There is a viable passer in Andy Dalton in there somewhere, a viable veteran option for the Patriots if they do want to go this direction.
I would say and argue a little bit, Evan, that he actually does throw the ball down well beyond 20 yards accurately. The problem is, and you mentioned this, the decision making. And anybody who watched, and certainly Belichick watched the December 15th game at Paul Brown Stadium, it was right in front of him. I keep going back to this. The interception before halftime and the pick six in the third quarter. Those were two terrible decisions by Andy Dalton that changed a one-possession game, less than one possession. I believe it was a 3-point Patriots lead, 10-7, and turned it into a blowout. And that has been the problem that has plagued Andy Dalton really since the 2015 season, when he was certainly a candidate for NFL MVP. Bengals got off to an 8-0 start. And then against the Pittsburgh Steelers in December, he fumbled the ball and decided to go plunging headfirst into the pile and broke his thumb. And my instinct on that, really that play tells you all you need to know about Andy Dalton. He is tough as nails as a quarterback, but his decision-making isn't always the best.
Right, and I remember sitting there with Trags in the Cincinnati press box, a grumpy Trags at that, by the third quarter, because
I just wanted to see a competitive game, Evan.
Right, well, no. That's where I'm going with this, is the Bengals were in that game. Believe it or not, Cincinnati was in that game at halftime, and it really was Andy Dalton and the 4 interceptions that buried them. And the point of him just continuously targeting Stephon Gilmore with Boyd and covering Tyler Boyd against Gilmore, that matchup, he just kept on going after Gilmore, and it just never made any sense. I think the thing that stands out to me, though, with Dalton, the reason why I kind of see him as a system fit is in a quick horizontal passing game where you're just getting the ball out and you want the guy to be able to get through a full field progression and go 1, 2, 3 through his reads and figure out where the ball should go in a timely fashion. That's sort of Andy Dalton in a nutshell. So it's certainly not the sexiest quarterback name that we could be talking about. Cam Newton has a lot more upside in this sort of equation here, but I think that Dalton does bring a little bit more of a system fit than what you would get with a guy like Winston or a guy like Cam.
One more quick point. He's eminently coachable.
And
big thing.
One issue remains for the Patriots, and that's cap space, of which they don't even have $2 million right now. So how do you make this Dalton deal work if the Patriots were interested?
The thing is, Sierra, is after seeing what Jameis Winston just signed for in New Orleans, which is a little over $1 million with incentives to earn more if he ends up playing, I just don't know if there's going to be that robust of a market for Andy Dalton that he's going to be making that much more than that. So obviously it's going to, be tight up against the cap, but what they can do is they can just use little cap maneuvers, salary conversions from signing, from base salary to signing bonuses and stuff like that, just to clear up a couple of $1 million in space just to give them some padding for an Andy Dalton type deal. I don't see this as a situation where he's going to demand $5 to $10+ million in a deal with a team. When you look at the landscape of the league, the draft has already gone through. There's been 13 picks in draft at the quarterback position. The undrafted free agents are all signed, with the Patriots. They got 2 guys, a couple of teams picking up undrafted quarterbacks as well. So you look at the 2 deep depth chart around the league, and there's not a whole lot of options here at this point of the off season. So I don't think that he's going to demand top dollar by any means.
I think that the Patriots, if the money is the issue, they'll find a way. I don't think that would be necessarily a problem, even though their cap space is very tight. And Evan, you make a great point about incentives. If there is any quarterback right now that is wanting to prove himself, there's 2 quarterbacks come to mind, right? Certainly Cam Newton wants to prove that he can be the former MVP that he was, and Andy Dalton, who wants to prove that what happened toward the end of his stay in Cincinnati was a fluke, and really he is more like the quarterback that we saw the first 4 or 5 years in Cincinnati. Though the other play that comes to mind when you're talking Andy Dalton, and I think everybody here in New England recalls this, is the last play of the 2017 season. The Buffalo Bills needed Andy Dalton to drive down the field and beat the Baltimore Ravens, who were playing for their playoff lives. And Andy Dalton made a great pass on 4th, and I believe it was 16, and found Tyler Boyd for the touchdown. I think there's something in those types of plays that Bill Belichick loves. Obviously, the Bengals are playing for nothing, but the other team is, and there's a competitive fire in Andy Dalton. He scrambled around, looked downfield, kept his eyes downfield, and found Tyler Boyd for the touchdown. I think that is a play to keep in mind when Patriots fans are considering Andy Dalton.
One more point, and then we can log this 10-minute video plus video off. I can see Sierra's starting to fall asleep on us. No, just kidding. When you look at the landscape of the veteran quarterback market this offseason, Jameis Winston, I'm just looking at my free agent projections here. A lot of people are projecting him to make upwards of $20 million in free agency. He signs a $1 million deal with New Orleans plus incentives right after the draft. Cam Newton still unsigned. The Bengals can't find a trade partner for Andy Dalton and end up having to dump him for nothing. It has not been a robust free agent market or trade market for these veteran quarterbacks, and I don't expect it to all of a sudden change now that Dalton is a free agent.
Absolutely. And for all of our Patriots coverage, head to our website at clnsmedia.com and check out our videos on our YouTube channel at Patriots Press Pass.